Man, oh man, putting it together at the last seconds to get it to you guys. Good to see you. Good to be with you, Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Radio show will be jumping in a second. Of course, we're going to be talking Texas. There's no doubt. I mean, this is taking on a life of its own, and now everyone's got to ask, where's their governor? Where is their governor on this subject? And to get it clear, it is not Texas violating the Supreme Court or Supreme Court decision. That's not what is happening here. It's really important that get remembered. I'm going to get to the story right now. We're coming on with the show. Let's go to it. Texas is not violating a Supreme Court decision. That's not what's happening. Texas is making a very, very clear statement. And that clear statement is, we're going to protect and defend ourselves, kitten. That's what's going to happen. We're going to do it. We're going to do it unabashedly. We're not going to apologize for it. We're not going to clear it with you. We're not interested if you like us. We're not interested if you're our friend. None of it matters. What matters is that we protect the nation. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. And by the way, it is a conversation of protecting the nation while they're protecting themselves. Let's start where we need to start. And let's start with the case, the Supreme Court case ruling against Texas. What did they actually rule? Well, this starts, of course, long before that, with whether or not we're actually protecting the nation at the southern border. Is this administration doing anything to protect the country? Most of us would say absolutely not, and nowhere near enough. Absolutely not, and nowhere near enough. We have got an open, porous border. My time at the border, it's not been, for forever. I haven't been going for weeks and months and years. I've done one visit to the border, which makes it one more visit than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I put my hand in the Rio Grande, spoke to Border Patrol agents, spoke to people who work in the areas, understanding the problem and the level of insidiousness of the issue. I have much more to go in my own learning. But there is no doubt that the border is in a worse state today than it was under Donald Trump. To say otherwise is a maddening proposition. It would simply be a lie. And we hear these lies quite a bit. We get these lies from people like Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, had the audacity to go on and do an interview on CNN. And she wants you to believe that the border is not only secure, but it is Republicans getting in the way. Instead of a conversation of, here's the policy we'd like to put in place. Here's the policy we would like to see happen. Here it is, as clear as day. No. It's how Republicans are getting in the way of making things happen. It is Republicans who are keeping you from being safe. Of course, this is not true. Of course, this is not true. This is nowhere near true. As a matter of fact, we're all amazed that you're even having the conversation. And then we took a look at a watch and we said, oh, that's right, it's an election year. And all of a sudden, you've got the Democratic Party very, very concerned with the border. But they're not concerned with a solution and by the way, there's not one. It's multiple pieces. You're talking about border security. You're talking about border technology. You're talking about what's going on with actual border patrol. You're talking about where they put their time and focus and energy. You're talking about the labor side of it because you do need the workers. There is a humanitarian crisis when you talk about the sex trafficking and the human trafficking that's taking place. And here's how Karine Jean-Pierre wants to treat you.
It doesn't seem like they've gotten it. They now are allowed to cut down razor wire. Yeah. Some Democrats are saying the president needs to federalize the Texas National Guard.
So look,
that's something that could happen?
I mean, look, I'll say this. The Border Patrol agents are now, as you said, allowed to cut through the wire because of what the Supreme Court has laid out It's unfortunate that we had to go there. It's unfortunate that there is a governor in Texas, Governor Abbott, who has politicized this issue of what's happening on the border. And it's not making people's lives safer. It's actually making it harder for law enforcement at the border to do their job. And so we have been very clear. We want to make sure we get something done at the border. That's why we've been having these conversations with Senate Republicans and Democrats for the past several weeks to come up with a bipartisan.
The past several weeks, not the past several years when this has been a problem, the past several weeks. Election season, everybody. Ain't it great? And is it not just one? I really should have a studio audience. I swear I really should. She wasn't kidding, by the way, about those people who think that there should be a federal takeover. This was Congressman Joaquin Castro. And he stated Governor Greg Abbott is using the Texas National Guard to obstruct and create chaos at the border. If Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, POTUS, President of the United States, needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard now. Now, he's got a series of confused things going on there regarding the National Guard versus Texas State Guard. These are different entities. But go back to what it is Karine Jean-Pierre said, and this will go back to how we started. That Governor Greg Abbott of Texas is absolutely not defying the Supreme Court. The decision, a 5-4 decision, stated that the Biden administration can cut through the razor wire. Now, if you ask where I am on that decision, I would argue that I am not in favor of anything the Biden administration has done with the border. But as I was a guy who said during the Trump years, the president decides immigration policy, and I'm not interested in changing that unless there's some congressional action to change it. I won't listen to judges say Trump couldn't do X and Trump couldn't do Y, but Biden can do A, B, and C. This goes to the idea of DACA, for example. Here's Barack Obama with a pen, and he's like, all right, deferred action for childhood arrivals. We'll just change immigration policy like this. Donald Trump wants to change it and say, let's get rid of DACA. And some judge says no. With all due respect, that judge should be told to kiss off. Who cares what that judge has to say? That judge doesn't matter in the slightest. Tell that judge to go raise an army. The president, elected by the people, determines immigration policy. And I believe that to be true for the current president as well, even if I don't like what it is he's doing and I don't like him. And I don't. On even a personal level, I just find him to be an abhorrent cat. The ruling said that the Border Patrol can cut through the razor wire. The ruling did not state that the Abbott administration in Texas could not add razor wire. Now, if you're like, well, Tony, with all due respect, calm yourself down. As the Sopranos would say, put a little fizzy water on your head and relax. You're wrong. The court said what it said. It did not stop Greg Abbott from protecting the state. As a matter of fact, Greg Abbott has been very clear that his plan is to protect the state. Here's his statement right here for all to read. Of illegal immigrants across the border. This is why the framers included both Article 4, Section 4, which promises the federal government shall protect each state against invasion, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. Now, no one in America, no radio host in America has discussed Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution more than me. I want the credit where it is dang well deserved. No one has said it more than me. Article 4, Section 4 says that every state in the union will be guaranteed a Republican form of government. And yes, that government will protect the states from invasion. It does not say it will protect the states from regulated armies where everyone's wearing the same uniform and marching like redcoats did. When you have single able-bodied males crossing the border, it's an invasion. When you have this,
if you are smart enough, you will know who I am. But you are really not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're going to know who I am. Very well.
And the question of whether or not that guy was a guy who spent 12 years in prison for trying to do arms trafficking in Azerbaijan, maybe being successful at it. That guy cannot be in the United States. Of course, you can consider that an invasion. Anybody who would make that level of threat, veiled or however you want to describe it, without question, the border is not safe. That can be seen as an invasion. As a matter of fact, I believe all of it can. But what about Article 1, Section 10? I like the way Greg Abbott's thinking here. I like the cut of his jib. As the expression goes, Article 1, Section 10. Oh, the Constitution is a fascinating document. Let me read it. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. Kitten, let me tell you, that's pretty good stuff. What Greg Abbott is arguing is that certainly if you don't want to agree to this being an invasion, one can agree that there is imminent danger that will not allow of delay. And it is his responsibility, as per the Constitution of the United States of America, to protect not only his state, but the country. I believe this to be an absolutely winning argument. Not only a winning argument because I so believe it, but a winning argument because he is not acting from an emotional place. He laid it out, did Greg Abbott. He laid it out with clarity, utilizing the Constitution, utilizing his powers as a governor, and recognizing that states have rights. Because they do. States have rights. And there have been a lot of people backing him up. The governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, putting out on X, enough is enough. Our southern border is in crisis thanks to the Biden administration's refusal to do their job. Greg Abbott and the state of Texas have our full support. Kristi Noem out of South Dakota. Greg Abbott is exactly right to invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend itself. The Biden administration has created a national security crisis and put Americans in danger, writes Governor Noem. Their failure is an unconstitutional dereliction of duty. South Dakota has been proud, as she writes it, to help Governor Abbott's efforts to secure our border. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, I stand with Governor Abbott. The House will do everything in its power to back him up. The next step, holding the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, accountable. Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma. Oklahoma stands with Texas. Governor Gianforte of Montana. Governor Greg Abbott is doing what POTUS won't. By refusing to act, President Biden is inviting cartels, illegal drugs, and human trafficking into the United States. We must secure the southern border. Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. Virginia stands with Texas. Greg Abbott is doing the job Joe Biden and his border czar, that would be the Vice President Kamala Harris, refused to do to secure our border. The Biden administration has turned every state into a border state. We must stop the flow of fentanyl, save lives, and secure our southern border. And Governor Ron DeSantis out of Florida. The Supreme Court is siding with the Biden administration against Texas by allowing the federal government to take down razor wire on the border. Texas is trying to enforce our laws and uphold our sovereignty while the federal government is disregarding the law and ignoring its responsibility to protect our borders. What an upside-down world. Whether governors like it or don't like it, this is officially the litmus test. I'm not a litmus test guy, but you're not willing to make a statement as a governor here? You don't want to talk about the border? What about the idea of states' rights? You got to tell me there are governors who won't actually stand up for the rights of their state to be able to protect their citizens? In my state, Indiana, I've asked the question to Governor Holcomb, Eric Holcomb. We await his decision on this, and I keep checking out his feed here. I keep checking out his Twitter feed here to see where he is on the subject, to see if he has posted anything on the subject. I give it a little refresh right there, and nope. A lot of investment coming to the state of Indiana. I think you could be cheering that all you will and all you want, no problem at all. But no mention of the southern border. Well, that's going to be a problem. And certainly anybody running for governor in any state, this is a question that's going to be asked. Greg Abbott is not violating the Supreme Court ruling. And after all, if he did, what could they do about it? I mean, that's a question you should ask yourself. It would take the Biden administration doing something about it. And what are they going to do about it? They can cut the razor wire and Greg Abbott can put it back up. Maybe the answer is policy and a recognition that borders matter and we need a border. And the people who want no borders, the rabid squad and the other progressives, need to be told to sit down. They're wrong, and they have to be told. And Greg Abbott is right, and governors should let him know that he's right. As for what my governor, Eric Holcomb, is going to do, I ain't got a clue. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Guys, welcome back. Whew. We were a little late in getting everything together for the show. And so it took a second. But good to be here. Good to be with you. Of course, we're live streaming on Rumble, and we're live streaming on YouTube and growing. You're going to hear a lot of people on this Texas subject tell you that that Greg Abbott is violating the Supreme Court. It's just not happening. That's just not what's going on, and it's so important that whole concept be nipped quickly. But it won't happen when you think of MSNBC and you think of CNN. There are going to be a lot of lies told. An outrageous amount of lies will be told on that subject. What else do I have? Oh, that's right. Jon Stewart's coming back. Jon Stewart is coming back, and yeah, it's gonna be a thing. It sure is. I mean, because I have questions. I have a tremendous amount of questions about Jon Stewart coming back to that show. Mainly because what's he actually going to do? Excuse me, I send a text to Sarah. I hear you, 30 there on the radio side. You know we do the radio show as well, right? It's all connected. All right, there we go. Sorry, had a little work to do. I forgot to do something. I think it's going to cause me a massive problem. One of the big stories from yesterday is how Jon Stewart is coming back. He's coming back to The Daily Show. He's going to be an executive producer, and he's going to be the host one day a week. All of a sudden, he's Rachel Maddow. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Find us on Rumble. Find us on YouTube. Find everything on X at TonyKatz.com. He's going to be the Monday host. They're going to have fill-in hosts, rotating cast, Tuesday through Thursday. And then I don't know what they're going to do on Friday. I guess that's their day of rest. Jon Stewart, undoubtedly, for his time at The Daily Show, for a generation, was where they got news. It was absolutely where they got news. No question about it. And then Jon Stewart left for a while, and he did some good things in terms of pushing for legislation. You can agree or disagree, but you know he was out there trying to get some things done. And then he started this show at HBO, The Problem with Jon Stewart. And in that show, you saw that this guy who was supposed to be clever and smarter than the room, and a man who had focus. He had turned and wanted to be funny, focus on funny. He had turned into this ridiculous kind of concoction of progressivism and beta maleness. That's exactly correct. I mean, I couldn't come up with a better description than the description I just came up with. And that show did nothing. And that show went nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. So now that he comes back to The Daily Show, why am I to think that I'm going to get the same Jon Stewart that I had from The Daily Show? And I didn't agree with him there, but at least he was funny. We're not getting that guy. We're not getting this guy who is at the top of his game. We're not getting this guy who's got a strong mind and a strong sense of self. No, what we're going to get is this uber progressive, please like me guy. This show is not going to go anywhere, and this show will be off the air soon, right? I got to assume it'll be off the air soon. All right, let me see if I can find this. I'm looking for a specific video. There it is, actually. We're going to test it right here and see if we can make this work. We did an interview. We'll see right now. Let's see. So just when you think you have a basic understanding of Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz today. Okay. I guess it worked. That's pretty neat. See that? Same shirt. I'd spoken with Dr. Matt Will, an economist at the University of Indianapolis, a little bit earlier. I wanted to share that with you. So that's exactly what's coming up, where this economy is, because the numbers are all over the map. This latest shows GDP, gross domestic product, at 3.3%. You're like, man, are we cooking? And then you listen to where people are in this economy. You're like, how could anybody think we're cooking? How is that even possible? And then those most recent report today shows on inflation like 1.5%, but the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, showed us at 3.9%. And none of these numbers make sense, people. None of this is making sense. So Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis, and we try to make sense of it all. That's what we're trying to do right there. So I will bring you that coming up in just a moment. The live stream stuff is working. Very, very happy about that. It's weird. Some days we're like massive and some days it's smaller. I really do believe that the people who talk about consistency are absolutely correct. They are absolutely accurate that consistency is the name of the game. Just sending out a tweet while we do this. Oh, that's not where I want it. You gotta be focused. You gotta be doing it, and people will find you. And that's how it grows. So if consistency is the name of the game, well, then there it is. My digital director, Sarah, says I'm underestimating how deeply people worship Jon Stewart. No, I actually don't think I am. How deeply they did worship Jon Stewart. Different thing. That's my take. You could be right. We'll talk about it. We'll get into it in the next hour. I just got to finish this up. Tune in now. All right, good. So we'll get that going and we will be good to go. I love it. Glad you're here. This is coming together nice. I have decided I do have to hire a producer just for this. It has to. I need an extra body. It absolutely has to happen. So we're going to get this together. We're going to show this interview with Dr. Matt Will, and we will be all right. Coming back right now, guys. So just when you think you have a basic understanding of where the economy is, that you saw inflation trend down and then you saw it pick back up, the Consumer Price Index at 3.9%, that is not the target rate of 2% that the Federal Reserve is looking for. That's double, kitten. Double where the Federal Reserve wants to be. You're like, okay, things are not going so great. And then you take a general mood that exists within the country. This general mood of things are not good. We are not in a happy, strong place. This economy is problematic and dangerous and has no end in sight from being problematic and dangerous. When you saw the New Hampshire primaries take place, of course, they asked people, hey, what is your thought on this? And what is your thought on that? This was CBS News, and this was what they found out.
Yeah, so people are really bummed out about the economy here in New Hampshire, even if the overall big picture numbers are going in the right direction. And even if people's own personal experiences in general are going okay, there's a lot of gloom. And one of the reasons is food prices, for example, generally going up. And we talked to a bunch of people outside of a grocery store in Derry, New Hampshire. We couldn't find anybody feeling good about the economy. And that's just human nature. Psychologically, you go into a store, if you're paying more for items that you get every week, that really sticks with you. It really annoys you. It gets you down. People were upset about it. And so are they making it? Yeah, they're making it. But are they bothered by the fact that frozen OJ has gone up double digits and that steak on Friday is up double digits? Absolutely. And that's really driving people's perspective on things.
So that was out of California. I'm Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Dr. Matt Will joins us, economist at the University of Indianapolis, because with that backdrop, this was today's news, Dr. Will. The U.S. economy grew faster than expected. You're talking about a GDP, gross domestic product, of 3.3%, which in any economy or an average economy, we'd say that's just fine. That's some solid growth. But we saw inflation tick back up. There are now indicators that inflation is ticking back down. Talk to me about the numbers. What do they say?
Oh, goodness. There's so much to cover here. Let me first of all say that this is a good number. There's a lot of good numbers in this report. I am not going to say that there's any, well, there are a few things that are concerning to me, but overall 3.3 is great. But why is it down? That's the most important thing. And let me say what the headline should be. The headline should be Biden is losing the war on the economy, because the economy is looking good, but not because of Biden. The number one thing in this report that causes the GDP to go up is lower inflation. Now, right before we went on the air, you mentioned to me, well, the other reports say it's double what it should be, and you just mentioned that. That's true, but in this report says that the inflation last quarter was 1.5%. That's dramatically lower than what we were talking about just a couple weeks ago and below the target for the Fed. That's because there's different inflation reports coming out of the government. This one contradicts the others. This one says inflation is good. So that's one factor. You want me to go into the other ones? You want to chat for the inflation?
You have to go into all of them. There is no level of wonkification that we can't walk down, because this gets confusing. You know, how government agencies and others manipulate data to their benefit, as opposed to what we know when we're the people, just like you saw from that CBS reporting, at the store seeing meat being double in price and other things being double in price.
Well, according to this report, not the CPI, not the PPI, not the CPE, all the other ones that say inflation's still double what it should be, this one says it's down. So in that respect, Biden is losing the war because Powell is winning the war. Powell's trying to reduce inflation and Biden's trying to increase it from spending. The second bad thing is that the GDP is up because government spending is up 4.3% for the year. That is not a good reason for government, for the GDP to go up, is because government's spending more money. Next, consumer spending is up 2.8% in this report. That's below the national average of the GDP, but it's pulling, it's causing some juice in the economy. That's not a good thing. Why is it bad? Because credit card debt, highest spending in history. According to the top banks in the country, highest delinquency that we've seen in recent memory. Third reason, and this GDP report says it, people are saving less money. We've talked about this before. Again, in the fourth quarter, people are dipping into their savings to spend money. And this great holiday season that everyone was bragging about, the fourth quarter was worse than the third quarter as far as holiday spending.
Now it gets stupid. Talking to Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis, all we heard in fourth quarter spend was about how people were spending more, but no one answered the question, were they spending more and getting more, or were they spending more for the average things that they were going to buy, so they bought less, but they spent more to actually get less? That question never got fully answered, but I want to go back to a little bit of what you were getting into there. The whole winning the war conversation. If the fight is between Biden and Powell, Biden spending versus and those programs that engage spending versus Powell working the interest rates,
And Powell, also Biden versus capitalism. I want to talk about that too.
This is exactly where I was going to go. Don't steal my thunder, sir. That's just
My
rude.
apologies.
It is that we're the ones who end up losing, because in this conversation, this almost conversation in the ether about where the economy is, I don't mind a 3.3 GDP. I'd be very happy if that showed the country is really starting to kick. 3.3 is a wonderful number for a country with the economic output of the United States. But the American people aren't feeling any of this. We're still stuck in it. We still see the closings. We see the higher rents, for example, and what that's doing to the restaurant industry, closing people out, the higher labor costs. Even if you can get people to show up, you're paying the higher labor costs, even though they don't always show up. That is putting the squeeze on hospitality. We're seeing less. Therefore, you're seeing more crowding in those places, those costs going up. We're taking the hit on every side, yet Wall Street seems to want to play a game of things are great. So talk to me about the part two of this, which is Biden versus capitalism.
Well, the reason Wall Street sees things as great is because Wall Street is shifting their focus away from Washington, which I've said for years they need to do. Stop looking at Washington and look at Main Street, look at manufacturing. Private investment was up 10% in the third quarter. That's an amazing amount. Biden has nothing to do with private investment. In fact, he tries to punish companies. He tries to punish them for reinvesting their money. He wants to increase their taxes. He wants to punish them for trying to do stock buybacks. He wants to destroy capitalism, but capitalism says, no, we're going to do AI. We're going to reinvent our companies. We're going to invest. In addition, all the restrictions he's putting on businesses, exports were up 6.3% in the fourth quarter. So capitalism is saying, here, Biden, you're trying to harm us, ban our business from exporting, regulate us more. We're going to export more. We're going to invest more. So Wall Street's looking to itself and companies and saying, look, we're doing good things. We're growing the economy. They're winning the battle against Biden. Powell is winning the battle against Biden. For the American consumer, we're lucky Biden is losing most of the battles. But as you said, you go to the store, you're still getting less for the same dollar.
Let's talk where we are losing the battle, where the American consumer is clearly losing the battle. And you brought it up earlier. Third quarter credit card debt was $1.08 trillion. Now, I have not seen yet data on fourth quarter credit card debt, but you started bringing up the concept of defaults, talking to Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis. Can you talk to me about the data you're seeing about defaults? Do we have data on fourth quarter debt? And at what moment, well, if that moment hasn't already come, are people ringing the bell saying this is completely unsustainable? The crash is coming, if not here.
Well, you know what? We don't have the data because the banks aren't releasing it. They released anecdotal information. So the top 4 banks in the country said they have seen record level of delinquencies in credit card and debt payments that occurred in the fourth quarter. So we're waiting for the actual numbers on that. But I wonder if they're just afraid to tell us because it's that bad. And then this report does tell us that we're saving less money. The savings rate dropped 0.2%. We're saving less money. And again, anecdotal from the big banks, because they haven't released the actual numbers, they say highest credit card debt in history, higher delinquencies than we've seen, savings rates below pre-pandemic levels. All of those things point to what you just said, Tony, that the consumer is credit crunched, which we've talked about the credit crunch before. They're strapped for money. They're dipping into their savings just to make ends meet on a daily basis.
If the consumer is under a credit crunch, and we have discussed this in multiple ways. So, for example, you want to go buy a used car, but the bank will not lend you money to buy a used car because they're concerned of your ability to pay it back. And then when you go to the used car lot, they don't even exist anymore because they weren't able to get loans to purchase vehicles from the auction because they feared that the consumer coming to the now empty lot wouldn't be able to pay back the loan. So it hit in both ways. It would seem to me, a novice, Dr. Matt Will, that a credit crunch would be disastrous for everybody on Wall Street and Midwest Main Street. Do I have this wrong?
Okay, you're kind of naive to say you're naive. That is incorrect. You described it very well. That's exactly what what's happening right now. And the credit crunch, to go a little bit further, is we have not yet seen the volume of defaults rolling into, let's say, commercial real estate. Think of all those empty office buildings in the downtown in a big city. Those office buildings were on lease for a long time. People are not going back to work into the office. They are, but not as much. It's not going to go back to pre-pandemic level. So what if you've loaned money for someone to buy a building? They're going to default on that. And we're starting to see those default rates increase. So the next big tsunami coming is the commercial real estate credit card default. And that's going to be the next iteration of the crunch. And that's
real estate credit default. So it was, I think the Wall Street Journal had a piece about this because we did discuss it. There's going to be, before 2028, a tremendous amount, Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis, of loans that come to maturity. And when those loans come to maturity and you can't refinance at a better rate or even the same rate, you're going to be paying far more than you bought that property for. There are going to be a fair amount of people more than convinced to give up the property, considering that people still aren't coming back to the office in numbers that make those properties worthwhile. How does the commercial real estate market and that impending, coming, clearly looming issue affect us on Midwest Main Street?
We saw it in March. Remember the bank crisis we talked about? And I said, it's not going away. It's just going down a little bit. We're just letting it, it's going to sleep, but it's going to rear its ugly head. Most of the loans made by local regional banks are commercial loans. They sell their mortgages. They don't keep your mortgage. They sell it to somebody else. So the loans on their books are these long-term commercial loans. And when those things come due, as you just mentioned in the report you stated, those things are going to cause the banks to have a crisis. And I believe that the bank crisis is not yet gone. And I keep talking about this in my speeches because, people say, oh, March, it was here, it was massive, it was fixed. No, it was just subdued for a moment. It will be back.
And what does it look like when it's back? How do we see it? Like, what is the indicator for people? I don't mean to ask a question on a question. What's the indicator for the layman where they go, yep, time to hunker it all down?
When your regional banks go bankrupt. Now, I'm not predicting that. There are solid regional banks, okay? We've mentioned that before. The regional banks, especially in Indiana, are fantastically safe from interest rate risk. But where they're not safe from is default risk, which means if someone doesn't pay back their loan.
But wouldn't that argument also apply to large banks? You could say, well, they've got more cash, so they have a safer position, but they also deal with bigger loans. One could ostensibly argue. So doesn't the problem also apply there?
It does, but not as much, because the regional banks are more on a percentage basis. Most of their portfolio is in local, regional construction, commercial loans. The national banks have much more. They have bonds to Coca-Cola or bonds to IBM. So they have a different portfolio structure, but all those local banks, your hospitals, your apartment complexes, they go to the local bank to get those loans. And so that's why there's more exposure to the regional and local banks.
Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis. I appreciate taking the time to be with us. More is coming up. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. And that turned out pretty well. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Forgive me, some people were commenting, and I couldn't get to the comments. Trinity, hello, good to see you. Good, a nice photo. Well done, well played. So some people leave comments on Facebook and YouTube. I'm able to see the comments that way. People leaving comments on Rumble, I'm not able to post those, but I can see those. So I've got those as well. I have got some information regarding the CEO of Toyota. I will bring that to you. No word yet, of course, from Governor Eric Holcomb regarding support for Texas. And I know he's going to be guys like, I don't need to get involved in that. That's all just noise. It's not just noise. Not just noise. In the third hour, which will be on the radio side only, I'll get into the Carrie Lake story. That's real. When I first heard that story, this guy tried to bribe me into not running for Senate in Arizona. I was like, this is not a thing. This is not a it's going to be some errant tweet posted. It's going to get spun out of control. Oh, there's audio. It's nutty. It is nutty. And the guy who's the chairman of the Arizona Republican Party, now former chairman, because he resigned. He's trying to explain it, but the audio doesn't connect. Not in the slightest. Oh, it's so bad. But there's a weird thing happening with that story where people are clutching their pearls and saying, oh my gosh, they tried to give her a job and pay her who knows how much money not to run for Senate. Yeah. Doesn't that happen all the time? Hey, don't run for this. We'll get you a gig over here. No, we see so-and-so over here. Let's put you over. Isn't that what chairmen do? Isn't that what they do? I'm not surprised that this question got asked. Oh, and let's be clear. I'm not even mad at her about it. Carrie Lake recorded that, knew it was being recorded, engaged the answers to make herself look great. Oh, absolutely. I'm putting money on it. I would ask her point blank, and if she told me no, I'd laugh out loud. Oh, I will have that story in the third hour. Has to happen. Some people had noted also on Rumble that the chat was having a little bit of an issue. I don't know what the answer is, because it's not like I could just say, okay, everybody head over to TonyKatz.com, because people come from all these different places. I don't want to screw that up for them. 60 seconds heard there, producer Jason. Jason is back in the saddle where he belongs, but very often Jason likes to take days off and he gallivants. So he plays the local club scene around here, a guitarist and singer, and then he's a photographer, and then sometimes he does some modeling on the side. Feel the air quotes. He does a lot of side modeling, says producer Jason. So he's not always with us, but he's here today, and I think that's what matters. I think that's what's good. Leave a question, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe on Rumble and on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, screw Mark Zuckerberg. But you can like the page, Tony Katz Radio. I'll take it. I will take it. But subscribe on Rumble especially, because we've been having this issue where we've stayed at the same number for like a year. It's not possible. And we don't know what's going on. I'm telling you, Rumble, there's a problem. You got to fix it. See, now I'm doing it on here. Got to fix it. Let's talk about Toyota. The CEO of Toyota, I should say it's the chairman of Toyota. He's making sense, perfect sense. And what he is saying is that customers, not regulations or politics, should make that decision. What decision? Whether or not you buy an electric vehicle. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Find everything over at TonyKatz.com. Stating the quote, I've continued to say what I see as reality. If regulations are created based on ideals, it is regular users who are the ones who suffer. You cannot force people to purchase electric vehicles. You have to put it out into the market, and then you have to let them decide. And this is a world-class position to take from Toyota, who's really focused on hybrid technology. Hybrid makes very, very good sense. Electric is a harder road. Now, some full disclosure. So I have a sponsor locally in Indianapolis, Andy Moore Ford dealership. Wonderful, wonderful people. Chris Houston, the entire gang over there, wonderful. And so I have driven their Mach-E, the electric Mustang. I don't know why they call it the Mustang. It was an incredible drive, incredible. And I'm currently driving, and I have been even through the massive cold snap in the Midwest, the Ford F-150 Lightning. Now, if you ask me if I think that truck is great, that truck is unbelievable. It is unbelievable. It's the XLT. It's not a super fancy trim package. It's a good trim package. It is super comfortable. It is easy to do everything. It's got a 280-mile range, 260-mile range. And let me tell you, it was a pleasure not to use a stop at a gas station during that cold. But absolutely, cold-affected battery. I won't lie. And you already know that Ford is cutting production of the thing because you can't force people into buying an electric vehicle. The cost, it doesn't make sense for them. I can argue because I work at home, right? The whole studio's at home. The new studio is getting built. Everything I do is here. I've been able to build this world around this. For me, as weird as it sounds, an electric vehicle makes sense to the lifestyle. So now you got to find somebody who has the cash, and you got to find somebody who has the lifestyle to make it work. That's a niche. You can't force it on people with regulation. Now I'm hoping that the Biden administration gets the message. Really what I'm hoping is that we win the next election, sweep the House and the Senate, get the presidency, and stop this madness. This is Tony Katz today. But that I've got, the chairman of Toyota on our side. That's not bad. That is not bad at all. So here's what's going on. You guys know that we've got the radio show going on as well. So the radio is heard across Indiana. And then weekends, we take the show, we break it up, and that's heard across the country. We're in Atlanta. We're in Tulsa. We're in St. Louis. We're across Indiana. We just picked up Detroit, a 9:10 a.m. Superstation. Thrilled to be with them and their FM translator, and only hope to see them grow and build. So we're there. It's building out nicely. So we do this in conjunction with the radio show. So that's 1 hour gone. And we do another hour of the live stream to go. So that's what's coming next. So we'll take the quick break, take a stretch, do what you got to do. I'll share this with you right here, and we will go from there. And don't forget to like on Facebook and on the Twitters and all the other places. Be right back. We have had a series of conversations over the years. Noah, we have things that we agree with and things that we disagree with. But when it comes to this, starting with this story right here about this attack on a hospital, where immediately it was about blaming Israel for the attack, and the New York Times did it best. The headline changed 3 different times, starting with Israeli strike kills hundreds in hospital, then at least 500 dead in strike on Gaza hospital, and then finally ending up with at least 500 dead in blast at Gaza hospital. Your piece over at National Review, I read the headline, "The hospital bombing lie is a terrible sign of things to come." How did they get to this place, Noah?
You have to have experienced it in real time to really get a full sense of how excited the press was by the prospect, the rejuvenating, the comforting prospect of being able to retreat to the notion that Israel too is prosecuting war crimes here. If you're a New York Times subscriber, you got an alert on your phone within minutes of the revelation from the Gaza Health Ministry that this strike supposedly occurred.
Everything regarding what's happening, this war in Israel, from the media side, certainly from the university side, and I'd love your take on that, is about what Israel has done in response. And they have forgotten that there are 30 dead Americans. They've forgotten that there are American hostages. There are 199 hostages, and that number could be more. There's 1,400 dead Israelis and others who were murdered for going to a concert. The media playing purposeful in that forgetfulness, is that an acceptable statement in your eyes?
Absolutely. What you describe is this sort of intellectual corruption, a tendency that you see among people who are sharp enough to know exactly what they're doing, to invert cause and effect, to attribute to effect the cause of a particular action. This is a sort of rationalization process that you need to work yourself through in order to divorce yourself from the humanity of the situation, to make yourself into an absolute ghoul that is just that obsessively forcing reality into a series of intellectual frameworks that are designed to help you understand your environment, end up doing the exact opposite, end up obscuring your environment, making your capacity to understand your surroundings and our shared reality unintelligible to the uninitiated observer. This had profound consequences. This lurch to take Hamas's version of events at face value is a real problem now. The streets are alive with riots in Europe and the Middle East. American diplomatic facilities are under siege.
Guys, welcome back. Good to be with you. This is the whiteboard. This is what I write down, what it is we're going to be working on, what we're going to be doing right there. I wasn't sure what I wanted to come back with because, of course, we're waiting on the radio station, which is back in about 4 minutes. I think I should do, let's talk about real incitement. I've got that right there. See, look at that. Very inspiring. I've got some audio from Kamala Harris. I've got some audio from James Carville. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. We'll do that. Thank you. Don't forget, we're Rumble live stream is happening. Facebook live stream is happening, but Facebook stinks. You can also find us on YouTube. Got a question, leave it. Got a comment, leave it. Agree, disagree. It's quite all right. Find everything going on at TonyKatz.com. You can email me, Tony@TonyKatz.com. And I'm getting yelled at by a guy on Twitter who wants to call Greg Abbott a murderer. While he has, Feds should move in and arrest anyone interfering with immigration, but he's got himself a Ukrainian flag. So as you know, that is highly woke. And I'm a guy who believes we should send the Ukrainians bullets, but dear Lord. Good Lord. What are you going to do? Some people will never, ever, ever learn. Meanwhile, that's where we're at. So let's find that. So I will get into this incitement because there's a real incitement that's taking place on the political left regarding Donald Trump. And it doesn't take much to see how absolutely dangerous this is going to be. It's going to be horrifyingly dangerous. And they're pushing it like it's no big deal, like it's not a problem. I think it's a massive problem. I think that they are pushing incitement. MSNBC, unquestionably. And I know people have brought this up here and there. I just think it needs a much, much bigger platform. And so that's that. And there we go. It's just some more madness right here from Joy Reid. If I said any of the things Joy Reid said on TV, on radio, I'd be fired. I would have been fired long ago. Fired. To that level of bigotry, you can get away with that? That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, we're coming back to the radio show now. So that's that. So we will bring that in. We will make that happen. It will be all right. So let's talk real incitement. And I come to you saying that having this conversation might very well get me in trouble with my stations. But my job, amongst other things, right? Be entertaining, be enjoyable, try and get people to come back and listen again tomorrow. I observe. It's kind of the gig, and see the thing that maybe somebody else hasn't seen. It's not that I'm smarter than anybody else. Maybe sometimes I can see around the corner a little bit better because this is what I focus on. Other people, they focus on their work. They're not focused on this. And so part of my job is to be thinking about the thing that other people aren't thinking about. Right? I kind of dig that gig. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Find everything going on at TonyKatz.com. I wanted to share with you a couple of things that have been happening in cable news and really get an understanding for how vicious MSNBC specifically and CNN included have become. If you want to keep arguing that Fox News is the problem, I'm not going to tell you Fox News handled everything regarding Dominion voting systems perfectly. That is not what I'm going to say. But how dare these networks claim a level of decency when they are the ones very clearly trying to engage a bit of inception and look for an action. Now, there's the standard stuff, which is the bigotry of Joy Reid, who is a bigot, and this regarding immigration.
And very quickly, this massive resistance, it sounds like the old Southerners who said that we will resist integration by any means necessary, that Chip Roy language. How does that read inside of the Latino community?
I mean, it's very simple. You know, if you're the Republican Party, you're allegedly the party of laws and order, and you're essentially telling local authorities to break the law. No, so I think once again, going into this image of, you know, who is the party of law and order and who is the party for democracy, I think that's where we all have to highlight the hypocrisy, regardless of the politics. They're essentially telling people to break the law.
Yeah. A fantastic reporter, Paula Ramos. Please come back a lot. Thank you very much for being here.
No one is breaking the law when it comes to Texas. Governors supporting the law, supporting a border, supporting security is what should be happening. The Supreme Court decision stated that the Biden administration could cut through razor wire set up by the state of Texas. It does not preclude Texas from setting up razor wire. These are two very different things. But within the context of this conversation that Joy Reid was having with Hillary Clinton's former deputy of who gives a crap? You want to state that this is some kind of old school conversation? You think this is about keeping black kids out of a school? You're going to compare illegal immigration to freed slaves who were Americans who were living their lives, and if you offer public education, it should be offered to all? This is an argument that you want to make and you think has rationality? It has none. But if your objective is not rationality, but rather your objective is to foment the hate, the division, and to continue the claim, as radical as it is, that this party, this group of people, they are the danger, they are the threat. Well, bravo, Joy Reid. It is to this that we are seeing a serious issue. This continued push that the election of Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and an end to democracy. This was Vice President Kamala Harris.
November of 2024, binary. And on the other side, you've got someone who has said that if he were back in office, he would weaponize the Department of Justice. Someone who has openly applauded insurrectionists as patriots. Someone who has said that they will go after their political enemies and applauds dictators, indicating that he would be one. So let's be really clear about what's at stake. And then, yes, of course, there is then a desire that let's get out there because we can't lose this democracy. We can't.
So to listen to a progressive talk about, oh my gosh, somebody else might weaponize the DOJ. They can't do that. Only we can weaponize the DOJ. Oh, and with a straight face. With a straight face, Kamala Harris does this. But more to it, I mean, and the whole thing can make you sick to your stomach, is this whole thing about democracy. Democracy is at stake. Democracy is at issue. Democracy is on the line. Are we not going to talk about what absolutely violent conversation that is? To make a claim that there is a 50% of the country that doesn't believe in democracy? Never mind that we're a republic. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in keeping the country. No, they're the ones who absolutely want to keep the country. You're the ones who have open borders. But this talk, when the right talks, it should always talk in terms of policy. The left should too, but the left always goes to this radicalness. And not only the radicalness of, if you elect these people, the whole country's going to end. They purposefully push and want the dehumanizing. This is James Carville. Producer Jason, finger on the dump button, because I don't know, he's on MSNBC. Who knows what he might say? But just to make sure. Listen.
Okay, right. This is not a typical election. And there's a massive effort to normalize this. You see the New York Times column say, well, the Trump people have a case. You see the head of J.P. Morgan Chase, the largest bank in the United States, saying, well, they're right about some things. You see reporters with Jason Miller in the Fort Des Moines Hotel. Reminds me of a bunch of German reporters in some Munich bar in 1935 saying, hey, Goring, he was an entertaining guy. I tell you what, he had some great stories. Nothing is normal about this at all. And you watched his speech last night. It was completely unhinged. And what I am obsessed with is stop treating him like he is a normal candidate, that this is some kind of Bob Dole, Mitt Romney. This is really not, Ari. And
you treated Bob Dole like crap, and you treated Mitt Romney like crap. You brought up binders full of women, his dog's on his car. You took the most decent guy you could ever possibly meet, and you purposely, willfully, wantonly destroyed him. And Harry Reid, the late Harry Reid, one of the most despicable characters in all of American politics, went to the Senate floor and said, Mitt Romney doesn't pay his taxes. And when he was asked about it, he said, well, don't ask me, ask Mitt Romney. And years later, he's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But we won, didn't we? The scumbaggery has no end here. But we can't treat Donald Trump like a regular candidate? Because he's too much of a threat, right? Because democracy is on the line, right? Because we will cease to exist if he wins, right? How many more ways are we going to be told that MSNBC is absolutely, and so is CNN, and I believe the New York Times and others as well, are pushing a doctrine that is attempting to find somebody to engage in the unthinkable? I'm going to get yelled at for noticing what they're saying. I'm going to get emails. I am going to have my radio people saying, Tony, I'm noticing what they're saying. Where else does it go? What is the natural conclusion of the horror show that they're putting out there? And they get to do it with reckless abandon. They get sponsored for it. They get to engage this conversation that is in every way a conversation about violence, a conversation begging someone to do something unthinkable. Wasn't it Bongino? Wasn't it Dan who had brought this up a couple of months ago, which is funny because he's not the first person I'd ever heard bring this up. It was my co-host from Eat, Drink, Smoke, Fingers Malloy, was the first person who I ever heard bring this up. And so I have been, over the last couple of months, trying to find the places and the spots where this is obviously the conversation, but it's happening underneath. And just this 1-2 punch of, or actually 1-2-3 punch from Joy Reid, from Vice President Harris, and from James Carville, is just a great primer to what it is we're seeing. If you have a political enemy, they should be treated indeed as a political enemy. You should be engaged in a conversation about the data, conversation about the policy. These should be the things. Putting out there a theory that, if you elect this person, everything's going to be destroyed. Wouldn't that be a shame? That is a whole different thing. Now, on the political right, we, of course, have been dealing with the fact that the political left has been engaged in this kind of talk, not recently, but for the past 25 years. And you can go earlier than that, but let's just start with the election of George W. Bush. The Supreme Court didn't go their way, and they lost their minds, and they've never recovered. The court didn't do what they wanted the court to do, and of course, the courts do what the left says to do. This is how it was been built and designed, and it didn't happen. They lost their what? They lost it. They completely fell down and fell apart, and they've never recovered. And the political right has watched as the venom has only grown. Paul Ryan is going to push grandma off a cliff. I mentioned Mitt Romney. Sarah Palin, anyone? And then, of course, the coup de grace, Trump. And I'm not a Trump guy. I mean, if he's a nominee, I'm voting for him. Right? I'm not crazed. It's just... policy-wise, I like. Everything else, I don't. Because I don't like the idea that only one person can do the thing. I think multiple people can do the things. You got to take the lessons and then apply them. What are the lessons? It's the idea of saying out loud, look at what they're doing. Don't let them do that. That's one of the lessons. Trump did that better than anybody. And people still can't figure out why he's so attractive to so many across the country. All the other things about Trump and madness and craziness and statements, that could be very true. But look what he did over here. Do you not want to recognize how valuable and important that was? This is what we're seeing from the political left. And I want to say very specifically from MSNBC. This is how I see it. And I don't think I'm alone in seeing that there is an aggressive call to somehow not treating Trump like any other candidate, trying to scare people into, if this happens, we're all doomed, and then giving it a little bit of a wink, right? If I could wink, I would wink. I can't wink. I don't know. But I wasn't born with that feature. I was born with other features. You're welcome, ladies. But I can't wink. But every day it looks like they're winking. You guys know. You understand what we're saying. And nobody says this has to stop. Disagree on policy, don't like the guy. But this has to stop. So let me say, not that I'm the first, but at least put me in one of what should be many. What you're doing, MSNBC and CNN, is really dangerous and is absolutely something that America should be opposed to. Stop doing this. Because you know you're doing it. Stop. I'm Tony Katz. This is Tony Katz Today. Good to be back, guys. We'll be back with the radio show in a couple minutes. Glad to see everybody here. Leave your comments. Do the thing. You can leave it on Rumble. You can leave it on YouTube or Facebook or X, and I will get all of them. I'm going to get into a Nikki Haley conversation because she lost a donor. And then Chris Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, with quite possibly the most insane statement I've ever heard. I mean, wait to hear it. You will not believe that it's possible somebody said this. I mean, there are political lies, and then there's this. Just flat out nutty. So I've got that, and then connecting what happened in Ohio to Joe Rogan. No, not in a bad way. Just something Joe Rogan said, which I had to edit up because it's Joe Rogan, and I'll share that with you as well about where we need to be as a nation on some subjects, and how you can't. There are some places where you can't bend, you can't break, you can't. There's simply a right and a wrong, and you got to say so. So I have got that to get to, and I think I have some more audio. Or maybe I got it. No, I got it right here. So I will share that with you. And Joe Biden, just there's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of screaming from Uncle Joe, for sure. Find everything going on at TonyKatz.com as always. We call it the show. I don't know. Should it have a name? Should it just be the Tony Katz program? Doesn't sound too interesting. Here we go. So Nikki Haley loses a sugar daddy. I don't know, that might be considered rude. Like, can I get a ruling? Can I get a ruling on that? Is that considered? Is that producer Jason's okay with it? We're good. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. Reid Hoffman, big Democratic donor who was donating to Nikki Haley. The story is he's cut off the funding after what happened in New Hampshire. She lost by 11 points. She overperformed and she lost by 11 points. The bigger story for Nikki Haley is she took money from a giant Democratic donor, the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman. That was a mistake. And that mistake is still haunting her. But I think nothing is more nutty than the governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, making this statement about South Carolina. Please don't be operating heavy machinery when you hear this. You've been warned.
Does she have to win in South Carolina? I mean, I can't understand the motivation for a candidate who doesn't win the first three contests. Don't you think it's a do or die there?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina are always the filtering states, if you think of it that way, right? We always want to narrow it down. Now, she narrowed it down way faster than anyone thought. I do think when you get to Super Tuesday, you have to win. You got to win some states in Super Tuesday. I don't think South Carolina is a must-win, but I have no doubt she's going to do very, very well there.
Today.
Oh. We're now to the place where winning doesn't matter. All you have to do is show up, and that's just fine. I do this for a living, and you're a junkie as well. That might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard politically ever. They're filtering states. What matters is Super Tuesday. Everything's a filtering state. Every win and every loss and every tie is a filtering. That it doesn't even mean anything. If she comes in second 3 times by double digits, she's been filtered, right? Let's argue that she overperformed in New Hampshire. And she was only down by 11. She overperformed by 7 points. She's down in South Carolina by 30 points. So even if she does even better, she overperforms by 10 full points, she still loses by 20. What the hell is Governor Sununu even thinking he's talking about? She has to win. That does not look likely at all. I mean, she might still go to Super Tuesday, but with whose money? I'm Tony Katz. With whose money? That is the only question. Guys, we'll be right back. I've got this Joe Rogan audio for you and how it connects to a story out of Ohio in an override. Keep it here. Be sure to like us and subscribe on Rumble or YouTube. So it was a very interesting commentary, and it was brief because I only saw the clip. I'm not anti Joe Rogan by any stretch of the imagination, but I just don't listen. I catch things here, I catch things there, but to sit down and listen to it, I don't get to it. And part of it, I should say, it's not just Joe. I don't listen, which is weird because I do podcasts. I don't listen. And I don't listen because I don't ever want somebody else's thought in my head. I fear more than anything, right? Like certainly I fear plagiarism. Now, I didn't go to Harvard, so I actually think it's a problem. I fear with everything in me having somebody else's thought in my head and then allowing that to be thought of as my own. Oh, scares the daylights out of me. Because it doesn't take much to be thought of as unauthentic. It doesn't take much to ruin a reputation that you've spent time building and wanting to grow. And so I don't listen to others. I mean, reading is mostly, studying stories, but I do some reading. Like I read Thomas Sowell, I read David Mamet and some other ones, but not podcasts. But this was different. I'll tell you why as the radio show comes back. So when I saw this clip from Joe Rogan, I actually had to edit it up for radio because, it's Joe Rogan and he doesn't have to worry about FCC things. I do, although I admit that I still probably wouldn't. Every now and then I say something here where producer Jason's like, "Oh, I don't know if Tony, you might be going over the line with a word like that." It's nothing compared to Joe, so I gotta be okay. Tony Katz today. Find everything at TonyKatz.com. The phone number 833-468-8669, 833. Got Tony. Joe Rogan was speaking to, I think the comic is Bobby Lee. And it was a conversation about what has happened on the left. If you've studied any bit of the last 30 years or 40 years, and some people would argue longer, what has happened is that there was a right, and then there was a left, and then there was a center. Right, a left, and a center. And then what has happened is like the frog in the water, and the water's heating up to a boil, but the frog doesn't know it. If you had dropped the frog in the hot water, it would have jumped out, but it doesn't notice that the water is boiling. Well, the left kept going to the left. Now it got noticed. The left kept going to the left. What didn't get noticed is that the center started shifting. The center didn't remain because the left went further to the left. And therefore, a new center had to be established. That center, de facto, do the math, would be to the left. And the center kept moving to the left. And every day and every week and every month and every year, the center kept moving. Until these people who claimed to be centrists were in no way centrists. They were radical leftists, except they weren't radical compared to the leftists that they now had. A great example. Obamacare was a radical proposition, a terrible idea, still is a total failure, and the people who bought into it and believed it were fools. The people who lied to us about it are criminal. That includes Barack Obama. If you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. You like your plan, you keep your plan. That was, and we're talking about, let's call it 2010. I think that's right. So that was 14 years ago. That was as radically left as you can go. Today, Obamacare is considered centrist, and the left today wants universal health care where doctors are slaves. Everything is 100% paid for. As a matter of fact, if somebody should catch a cold, somebody else needs to be sued because they did it. Probably rich white men. I would assume those would be the first people in the lawsuit category. That's how far things have shifted in 14 years. By the way, it could be rich white women, but I assume since everything is done based on race and based on gender, that it would be the men first because, patriarchy. That's an example of the shift. To that, Joe Rogan is having this conversation, which I did edit, but hey, finger on the dump button there, producer Jason. Why not? Listen.
Over time, this is what we're seeing. So over time, you and I, who used to be on the left, are now like, where's the left? Where are you guys? You guys are so far away. I can't even see you. You're out of your mind. You're giving little kids hormone blockers. You have no idea what the long-term consequences are. You're ignoring the health risks. You won't even talk about the health risks. You use things like gender affirming care. What are you saying?
Yeah.
What are you saying when you're talking about children?
Yeah.
Why are you just accepting this? Because it's a noble thing to blurt out, so everybody goes, you're on the right team. That's what it is. It's not like, oh my God, what are we doing to kids? It's not like, oh my God, what are we doing to San Francisco? It's not like, oh my God, why are we letting these violent criminals out of jail? It's like, oh my God, why? Over time, this is what we're seeing. So over time, you and I, who used to be on the left, are now like, where's the left?
I didn't mean for that to repeat. I apologize for that. So that's Rogan, and the clip came from Chief Nerd on X. And he's talking about over time, and he's talking about the spread and the divide. What happened to you? I stayed right here. What happened to you? That question gets asked often, and now it gets asked in a bunch of places. In Ohio, there was an override of the ridiculous veto that was put out by the Ohio governor, Republican Mike DeWine. The governor vetoed a piece of legislation. Daily Caller with the story, Kate Anderson reporting. The governor vetoed a piece of legislation which would bar doctors from performing transgender surgeries or prescribing cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers to minors. He vetoed it and then signed a piece of legislation, an executive order that would ban the surgeries but allow the cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers. He stated that he didn't disagree with his Republican colleagues, but other procedures should be left up to parents and medical professionals. The Senate, the House engaged the override. The Senate engaged the override. I'm thrilled by this. I'm overjoyed by this. Because as you just heard Rogan talking about, who in the world is in favor of this butchering of children? And it is a flat-out butchering of children. Children need to be protected more often than not from themselves. And there is no doubt that there are children being abused in these cases, and they should be protected. Well, this is in consultation with the doctor. You're right. A doctor never abused anybody, said Kermit Gosling. A doctor never abused anybody. No, that's never happened. Oh, they're a doctor. You can't question them. The parents made this decision. I believe parents get to make decisions for their children. And I believe when parents are abusing children, we already have set in place idea that the state can step in. Now, sometimes it is scary and the state is in and of itself abusive in how they do these things. But what you try and do is, to the best of your ability, stop the abuse. If a father was punching their child in the face, if a mother was hitting their son in the face with a stick, you would call it abuse and you'd end it. Forcing hormones and puberty blockers, which are not reversible things, they alter the chemistry for forever. If you're supposed to go through puberty and you take something to prevent you from going through puberty, you're different. And anybody who says it's reversible is lying as a disgusting, despicable fraud. Why would anybody be okay with this? To Rogan's point, on the left, you don't know that this is messed up? You don't know that this is backwards? Why would you be okay with this? This is crazy town. Does Governor DeWine now sit in his office in Ohio? What's the capital of Ohio? It's not Columbus. My gosh, what's the capital of Ohio? How do I not know this? Totally left me. This must be what it's like to feel like Joe Biden all the time. What's the capital of Ohio, everybody? It's not Columbus. Is it Columbus? Maybe you should look that up, producer Jason. Before. I had it right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Doubt me. Does he sit there in Columbus and put his feet up on the desk, Governor Mike DeWine, and does he say what Joe Rogan just said? Where'd the party go? What's happened to them? I thought we were the party of small government. What? Why? What's going on? Why are they going over there? It is not a position to which the political right has traveled far. A recognition that children are not adults and need to be protected. As a matter of fact, the entirety of Western civilization is predicated on this concept that we don't involve the women and the children, specifically the children, that we don't engage them in the battles, that we don't use them as human shields. That's what makes groups like Hamas, these despicable terrorists, even more despicable. We protect the children. It's our code. It's in our DNA. We don't strap the bombs to them and then put them on the bus. We don't do that. We stand in front of the stroller and fight. We don't stand behind it and use the stroller with the baby in it to protect ourselves. This is the position of the right. It is the left that has traveled so far in a direction that is impossible to comprehend. And so the center now becomes, well, the surgeries are out, but if they want to give these medicines to their kid in conjunction with their doctor, who am I to get involved? You know, small government. I'm a small government guy. I'm an Article 1, Section 8 guy. You know what never dawned on me? That a society or a block of society would state clearly and almost in song that abusing children is wicked awesome. You should purposefully confuse them. You should desire to confuse them. You should get them into taking medicines and surgeries to mutilate themselves as fast as possible. And then you should pass legislation that if parents don't do what the kid wants, we take the kid from them, which is, after all, the goal anyway. And you say to me, the goal. And I say to you, what else could Marxism possibly want? Except the removal of the parents and the control of the state for all things. If you take a look at how we view education, you send the Department of Justice after parents. Think about how left they've moved. It's no longer that education is necessary to engage children, to turn them into good adults and proper citizens, and therefore they can get good jobs. It is that education is a place of total indoctrination to which the parent should have no say. We went from the PTA to the P, please leave. The parents have no place here. The parents can't know the homework assignments. Zoom conferences during the days of COVID exposed that teachers were indoctrinating, not teaching. How dare parents actually watch me teach? No, we can't be sending the textbook home. Oh my gosh, we won't tell you if your child wants to use a different name or a different pronoun. You don't deserve to know. The right wanted education that has value. And when they weren't seeing it from public education, they looked to private education, then they looked to parochial education, and then they looked to homeschooling, and then they looked to all sorts of things. And the political left said, how dare you? Only we can do this. After all, we're trained probably at Harvard, the home of anti-Semitism. That's rude to say. Columbia is trying to get that trademarked right now. And they're the ones who continue to move in a place where you shouldn't have a say. Who left whom? And now you want to argue that somehow the political right is involved in a conversation by which they want more government to be able to what? to want people to be able to decide where they send their kids to school, to want to hold schools accountable because we're putting our tax dollars there is smart. It's not a question of somehow being government expansive. It isn't in the case of protecting children saying we want more government. It's about saying that we utilize this government for a specific purpose, and one of those purposes of the rule of law should be the recognition that Western culture and American culture demands that we recognize that children are children and not adults, and that children should be protected. That is the hallmark of a society of value. Mike DeWine didn't know that? Damn straight you override him. Damn straight. And remember, I see that as an example of a recentering of where the center is, which is so far to the left that anybody who calls themselves a centrist, I look at and say, oh gosh, are you pretty? Are you pretty? They'll always say to you, well, you see, I'm a centrist. I like to see both sides of an issue. So do I. But don't you ever notice that one side is right, one side is wrong? You never noticed that if you look at both sides of an issue, you see when it comes to children and claiming that they can choose their gender, one side believes that you should love children enough to help them through this moment in their lives and work with them without mutilating them. And the other side says you should immediately give them surgery and hormone blockers or puberty blockers. You should mutilate their bodies and their parents should have no say. One side is right and one side is wrong. The end. This is not a debate. If you're a centrist on this subject, that's just garbage. Mike DeWine's position is garbage. And it happened because the left has moved so far to the left, they've tried to reset the center, which provides none of us value. You got to know who you are. And you got to know why you believe it. There's a reason I'm a conservative. And that reason gets made more and more concrete at every second. I'm Tony Katz. Oh man, I brought producer Jason to the wire's edge there on hitting a commercial break. I apologize, producer Jason. I do. Okay. I gotta get that fixed. Sadly, it's been kind of raining here, so they're not building today the new studio, and I won't lie, I'm mad. I am mad. So two things. I think that this camera is too close. So I need some thoughts there. Is this camera too close? Second, I think I need another camera angle. I do. I think I need another camera angle to work. So I was going to try something like this. You tell me whether or not I can get away with this right here. Let me see if I can do this. There it is. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. But I wanted to show you it's something I'm thinking of. In the new studio, it'll look different than where I'm at right now. Let's see. There I am. So what about that? Oh, there we go. That was picking up actually like what if I had that? Is that all right? Like, can I do this? Or I hit that? Weird audio. I had two microphones open at the same time. That was the problem. Like, is that all right? Like, would that help if I made that kind of I think I'll bring this down like this. Make that kind of shift? I don't know. So these are the kinds of things that I'm working on. These are the kinds of things that I'm trying to figure out. I want to figure out how to make it work. What kind of works? Does multiple camera angles work? Does it make a difference? Would it make it more interesting? Would it make it more visually appealing. So this is what we're working on over the course of the next couple weeks. Now there's no live stream tomorrow. There's no live stream tomorrow because I've got some things going on. We'll be back to it next week. I'm thinking it's going to be Monday through Thursday. Is that all right? Do I have to do a Friday live stream? Like, should it be Friday? See, these are the questions, and I'd love your thoughts. I'd love to know where you are on these things and what we think. Meanwhile, I hear nothing from Governor Holcomb. Absolutely zero. Unbelievable that the governor of Indiana still has no statement on Texas. It's amazing. All right, we're coming back. Today felt like a long day. Well, I'll tell you what, kitten. It is still total radio silence from Governor Eric Holcomb of Indiana talking about Texas. Nothing. No comments. Do you support Texas and believe in their right to protect and defend the state of Texas? Yes or no? We're waiting to hear it. I'm Tony Katz. Still nothing. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here and being a part of the show. Like us on Rumble. Like us on YouTube. You can even follow on Facebook, even though Facebook stinks. And on the X at Tony Katz. You can be a part of what we're doing there. I would greatly appreciate that. I think it would be tremendous. Can't thank you enough. Thank you, Dr. Matt Will. And I will catch you guys. The radio will catch you tomorrow. Just that easy. Catch you tomorrow. Take care.